Brandon does over $2 million a month. You spend 30 minutes a week on that business?
Yes. The failure of a decision has little or nothing to do with the actual choice. The failure of a decision is proportional to lack of dedicated commitment. Let's build a company from 0 to 7 figures without doing any work in the field from day one. It forced me to build the business with no arms and no legs. The people who are most successful in our business actually don't have business ownership experience. Now I want to be doing 100 locations, $100 million a year. And I don't see that being a difficult thing to accomplish.
What is going on, guys? Lucas Jensen here with the Forward Thinking Podcast. Today, I got Mr. Brandon Vaughn, the CEO of HireBus, the founder of Wise Coatings, and an all-around awesome dude, awesome guy to know. And Brandon actually does over $2 million a month with his coating business. So, Brandon, dude, how you doing, man? Happy Monday.
Happy Monday. Thanks for having me, Lucas. Good to see you, man.
Happy to have you here. So our mutual friend Tanner introduced us on Facebook, I believe, right? It was on Facebook?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
On Facebook. And then Brandon came out to speak at PaintCon about how to build a team that can fly without you. Because like I said, Brandon does over $2 million a month. And Brandon, if I'm not mistaken, you spend 30 minutes a week on that business?
Yes. Yeah. We actually started the business as kind of a project called Map to a Million. And the challenge at the beginning was, let's build a company from 0 to 7 figures without doing any work in the field from day one, no answering any sales calls or phone calls from day one, and literally just build the business using people and marketing and systems. Like that's it. And so that's, we kicked that off January of 2021.
January 2021. So you just hit over 4 years.
Yeah. Yeah, 37 locations. But the first initial kind of jump, I mean, literally day one, we hired 3 people. By month 2.5, we were at 7 people, and we hit 100K a month in revenue. Month 4, hit 7 figures our first year, and then started kind of expanding and growing out. But now I'm not involved at all in the day-to-day operations. I have a CEO, Whitney, who runs the company. And she's built it literally. Like when I started, I had a full-time job. So I couldn't work in the business at all. That's kind of the big difference.
Crazy. So building that company, what were some of the first things that you removed from your plate? Because like you're obviously big on delegation, right? Your topic at PaintCon was how to build a team that flies without you. So like, where did you start building that team?
If you're going to have a service business, you have to be able to have people that do the services. And for a lot of business owners, it takes a long time to get off the tools, get off the truck. That's probably one of the biggest things that I see, especially painting business owners do, is they're stuck on the brush. They can't get off the brush, can't get off the truck, because no one can do it as good as they can. For me, I have 0 experience in doing garage floor coatings. I picked the industry specifically because I had no experience in doing it. It forced me to build the business with no arms and no legs. Like I couldn't go out and just go do it because I was the only one who had to. So I had to kind of think, okay, who could I strategically bring in that knew how to do the work, who could do the work? What kind of partner should I work with on the vendor support side that could train all my people, since I wouldn't be able to train them? And really, that was the first thing to delegate. The second immediate thing to delegate is sales, because I was not going to be going out and running sales calls. So sales was the first one. And then of course the phones. So when I first started it, I got a VoIP phone, like Vonage, and set up a call to where our main office line would just ring directly to my salesperson, who would answer the calls, schedule them for himself, go out, close the jobs, and then you just go in and schedule them on the calendar for the crews. And that worked for the first like 45 days until we really needed an office manager to handle that. And then for me, I was just like, okay, how much money can I dump on marketing? And we went from, 0 to 10K a month on marketing in like 3.5, 4 months. So that was like the other kind of key to scaling.
Crazy. What are you spending right now on marketing?
Usually we typically budget about 10%. So anything that we want, I apply a 10X rule. So 2 million a month, about 200K a month in ad spend across all the locations. I mean, I'd say that's probably pretty conservative, since we're also continuing to grow as well.
Yeah. And you said how many locations?
37.
37. Dang. Dang, dude. 4 years, 37 locations. That's about one new one a month,
Mhm.
continuously scaling, implementing new business. And some of these franchisees, do they have epoxy experience as well? Or are you kind of trying to like shape them as you were shaped, like no experience, you just dropping them in there?
Yeah, it's funny. When I first started this and I produced the Map to a Million series, I had a lot of people that reached out that owned businesses like, hey, we want to add on epoxy floors. This looks amazing. I have this business over here. It's kind of struggling, but like, I want to do epoxy now because, it's successful. It looks successful at least. And so we're like, yeah, come on board. You can join our team. We'll figure out a franchise relationship. And actually, most of those didn't end up working out, either from a, whatever type of perspective it was. The people who are most successful in our business actually don't have business ownership experience. They are corporate refugees. So been in corporate America for a long period of time, know systems, they know how to follow processes, and they really want a playbook. When you get people that are too highly entrepreneurial, they want to change a lot. And they're kind of used to changing a lot. And in a franchise system, or a system where it's like we have videos, we have checklists, we have everything completely spelled out for you. You kind of need that higher sense of compliance. So the journey is definitely different for franchisees that come in, especially our successful ones, as opposed to just someone who, already is a business owner. It's a different type of psychology. And I was not expecting that, to be honest.
Interesting. So they come from corporate backgrounds. I guess business owners typically have a higher ego. So it could be, oh, like this isn't how I ran my past business, whatever. And that could kind of fall under like the not so coachable aspect, but having someone coachable with a corporate background, it's definitely more impactful. But okay, so you got into Wise Coatings, you wanted to go into this industry, but like before Wise Coatings, before January 2021, when you started, like who is Brandon, dude?
Homeschooled kid who's always been in home services. My dad was an owner operator window cleaner for 33 years. He started a window cleaning business in 1978 and pretty much had every single one of us kids work alongside him. So he'd pay me 5 cents a screen, to wash windows with him when I was younger. Day I turned 18, I went out and got my own business license doing windows. Big surprise there. And probably some property management, property maintenance stuff like pressure washing, gutter cleaning, et cetera. And I've always been self-employed, with the exception of a brief period of time where I went out and got a corporate job after a massive business failure. We lost the business, we lost our house, we went on food stamps, we got completely broke, put my daughter's birth on a Nordstrom credit card. Like, it was probably the roughest lesson I've learned in business during that time period. From there, went and kind of recouped a little bit, started a marketing business, was traveling too much with the corporate thing. So started a marketing business, started doing that. And then that's in 2012, my dad was diagnosed with heart disease and had to basically close down his window cleaning business because he couldn't work physically anymore. At the time, it was just him by himself. So I came in and actually bought the business from him for $3,000 a month for life. That was kind of the terms. And that's where I really started kind of like understanding more business. I got a really good business coach and mentor. I know how to take care of my parents as well as our family. I just failed a business not that long ago. So I want to make sure I did it right. And then with All Clean, I grew that from 0 to 70 employees over the course of the next 5.5 years. And that was, I felt like my real training wheels business, where I really kind of cut my teeth on what matters: people, systems, marketing, like those things specifically. It has nothing to do with actually what the service is. It has to do with all this instead. And that led me to form a company called Conquer, which was a business coaching company. And then while I was doing business coaching and Conquer, that's when I decided to kind of start a business all over again and document kind of the journey. So there's my 60-second recap of life.
I love it. So Conquer was a coaching business. Was that based towards the home service space?
Yeah. Exclusively home service businesses.
So would you say that like you said it was called the $1 million map roadmap?
Map to a million.
Map to a million. Okay. So would you say the map to a million was kind of like a case study just to show like a proof of concept with Conquer beyond just what you've been able to get your clients to achieve?
100%. Yeah. It really started out as kind of Yeah, case study slash, hey, look, we have a lot of self-limiting beliefs about we have to be the one that does it. We have to know how it works. We have to, understand that part. And there's an argument to be made in a case that could be made for that. But I wanted to show the challenge of building a business, forcing yourself not to do it, and how quickly you could grow it because of that. And in all the videos, the call to action was to, sign up for our coaching calls and, join our little community. So that was the main kind of driver for launching, that Wise Coatings business. But then it started getting legs on its own and started kind of taking off. And so that's when I had to bring in a CEO to kind of realize the potential of what that business could be.
Love it. And did Whitney have CEO experience, or did you kind of like promote her internally?
Didn't promote her internally. She was someone who I was connected with for years before that. And we always liked working with each other. I saw her take a business from 8 locations to 220, kind of as general manager role in that,
Wow.
in that company. And granted, there's, a lot of teams and a lot of people that work to make that happen, but she had the experience of working with a small network and growing it into a much larger network. And she knew about products, she knew about inventory, and we launched our own product line internally and manufactured our own product line. And she headed up all of that, getting all the safety sheets and the inventory and the suppliers and the supply chain. I have no experience in any of that. And it kind of goes with my philosophy that I really like to think a lot of, which is, Steve Jobs says, I don't want to hire people so that I have to tell them what to do. I want to hire smart people so they tell me what to do. And in my new phase of entrepreneurship, I've really been trying to kind of force myself to think of, who do I need on my team that's way smarter than me, that already knows how to do what I'm looking to do because they've already done it and they've already been involved in a company, in an organization that's done it. And they can bring all that experience to me rather than me just being the one person that has to come up with the strategy and the execution. I have to teach everyone on my team how to do everything. I'm not smart enough for that. And I need people way smarter than me to do that.
Love that. And how do you find these types of people?
There's several different ways. One, of course, is inside your network, but it can be challenging to just look inside of your network, A, when you don't have a very big network, and B, when they're already kind of tapped out. They already doing their own thing. Like for me, my network is all entrepreneurs that all own their own businesses. So anytime I have a conversation about them wanting to do something with me, it's like, okay, what percentage of the business should we, should we own? Well, what does this look like? Are we going to 50-50 partners? And I'm like, well, no, I can't be involved in the business, but I've invested all the, capital to kind of get it to this point. So the number one way that I found it, honestly, now moving forward has just been through really good recruiting efforts. So writing really strong job ads, having a really strong top of funnel process for processing hundreds, if not thousands of applicants. We have a behavioral assessment that we built in HireBus called the Right Seat Score. So we can actually score people, how well they'll work as CEO, COO, whatever this hired position kind of looks like. And then setting up really clear written job roles and responsibilities. And then usually I always have some kind of incentive, whether it's equity or profit sharing or something along those lines, to where they can actually realize upside in the business if they help achieve certain types of targets.
So cool, dude. So cool. And is that why? Because like you said, there's 3 things that you need to build a business: is people, systems, and marketing. And you had the marketing agency, right? So obviously you understand marketing and know the benefit of it. Now, the next step is people, right? Is that why you developed HireBus? Is like you understand like this is like a huge component. Like people are the growing factors within a business. Is that why you started HireBus, or how did that kind of come into fruition?
Yeah, it actually came to fruition for a couple different reasons. One, it was the number one biggest complaint of the people that we coached in Conquer. They just couldn't find good people. And when we would sit there and we would coach them, and they would talk about they were getting ghosted on interviews, people weren't showing up, people would, they would hire someone, 2 weeks later, they would quit. And the business owner was very confused. And we started drilling down in, we realized they didn't have a good process for finding people. They didn't understand it as a marketing problem to solve. So they weren't putting hardly any budget in literally one of the most important parts of their business, which is, like a good salesperson can sell in painting, $1.5 to $3 million a year. a bad salesperson can sell what, 250, 500,000. It's like this huge disparity on impact. And if you aren't really, really focusing on how to get that right person, the result in your business just takes a massive hit. So because we saw this as a really big problem, I started reaching out to a whole bunch of different people who had assessments, had different, solutions and processes, and kind of found a couple cool things, but then also came up empty handed in a lot of ways of one thing that would just be able to help kind of solve it. And that's when we decided to start investing some money in building it ourselves. And, Wise Coatings is a big user of it. We have 280 technicians on a waiting list to hire at any point in time, because we have this funnel now that is just always recruiting, always interviewing talent, 365 days a year. So it's very helpful. Now I can use it for all the businesses I own to kind of get the recruiting part of it, as well as other businesses too.
I love it. And at PaintCon, remember what Jason was talking about, the disc assessment?
Yeah.
How would you say that this behavior analysis kind of, I guess, competes with the disc assessment? Are they completely different? Are they kind of somewhat similar? What does that look like?
It's very complementary, actually. So disc, I'm a huge fan of. I know what my disc score is. I know what my technicians and people on my team, I know what their disc score is. We still use it. It's not necessarily a replacement for it, although you can kind of realize what people's profiles are inside of the big right seat assessment. Behaviors are different than personality, and communication styles is really where disc shines. How do you talk to someone who's a high D or versus a high C versus a high S? That gives you very quick buckets of how do I communicate with them? What type of information do I show? So it's very effective in selling to people to identify what their disc score is. It's also good for leadership to be able to identify how you should communicate to other people on your team. But what's the ideal disc score for a lead painter? It's kind of impossible to say. Could be high D, could be high S, could be high C, could be high, there could be any variety of these different ones. But the cool thing about what the right seat score is there's 21 different behavioral attributes, that can show like change. Change is a scale that's not necessarily measured on disc. Do they thrive with a lot of change in their environment, or military leadership, or criticality, or some of these other components? It's a lot more nuanced. So it's good to kind of use both, I think.
Yeah, I love it. What's your disc profile, out of curiosity?
I'm an IDS.
IDS. I was gonna say an ISC. Okay, interesting. Yeah, I'm a ID. So I'm a 88I, and then about a 50, I think a 58D in natural style, and then adapt is a little bit different, but it's so interesting.
Yeah, for me, I actually would show high IS for the longest time when I was kind of a younger entrepreneur, and kind of lost out on the value of that high criticality, that very decisive personality that just has to commit. And there's a really good book that I read a while ago called Overcoming Indecisiveness by Dr. Theodore Rubin. And it's a really dry read, but there's a cool quote in there. It says, "The failure of a decision has little or nothing to do with the actual choice. The failure of a decision is proportional to lack of dedicated commitment." So, oftentimes we're faced with, a variety of different paths that we could kind of take. Most failures are usually the result of lack of dedicated commitment and seeing it through to the finish line. And you probably see this with some of your clients that come in and they're like, Facebook sucks, Facebook doesn't work. And you're like, dude, you don't understand. Like, it's a process. You got to test it. You got to tweak it. You got to, you stick with it, and there's massive results you can kind of get. It's just that indecisiveness of bouncing around to whatever shiny object thing, kind of happens. Early in my entrepreneurial style, it was definitely a lot more like that. I wasn't as decisive as I should have been. Instead, I cared a lot about what people thought, or what, team members, if they liked me or not on my team. So that's kind of changed over the course of time.
Yeah. I think something else that changed is just the, I guess, access of information. I feel like back in the day, there wasn't too much information, like, things like this, like podcasts where you're sharing the value of your story and whatnot. Like, there weren't things like this back in the day. Right. And now we're at a point where there's just so much, and there's so many different routes, and there's so many different things that you can do in your business that do work. But the thing is you take something from this person and this person and that person and this person. But the truth is someone can only really have one master, right?
Yeah.
The person that chases two rabbits catches none.
Yeah. Yeah. It's not even the information age anymore. It's like the opinion age too. So when you go on to the Facebook groups and you ask what you should do about a situation, you get 40 different answers, and you just never know. You never know what those people are doing in their own business and how successful they are and what their profit looks like. But man, are they quick to give you advice and tell you what you got to do.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And I think that's why there's so much success in companies that get acquired, is because there isn't all this emotional tie to it. Like
Mm.
in your business or in my business, it's like there could be people that may be underperforming slightly, but you have this emotional tie to it. And then someone who is a completely third party that has zero emotional attachments, like, hey, you got to get rid of this person or whatnot. But then when it comes to their business, it's like they are so caught up in the emotion of the decisions that it kind of clouds their judgment. So, but guys, I'm gonna share my screen here and show you guys what Hire Bus looks like on the behavior assessment. I'm gonna show you mine. Brandon let me do the quiz, and this is what he was talking about. Can you see my screen?
I see it. Yep.
Beautiful. So this is within the HireBus platform. There's a portal you can sign up with. I'll have Brandon drop the link after. But there's basically different kind of sections that you can go for, like dispatcher, office manager, executive assistant, marketing, creative, outside sales, etc. Like there are different positions and different kind of behaviors. And I guess this would be like the range, like the kind of feasible range for the specific positions, right, Brandon? You definitely could talk on this a little bit more than myself.
Yeah, the gray area that you see, this is what we call the river. And this is kind of the ideal range for someone that in historical sense has had great deal of success in these types of roles. It's not necessarily a one size fits all, but the blue line is where the candidate or employee lies with their different behaviors that they have. And then anything that's a little bit outside of that can be coached in. I actually just was on a call with one of our franchisees who took the test a year and a half later, and their behavioral chart was quite a bit different. And the insights that came from that was, hey, this is where you're at. You're in a state of burnout. You need to kind of adapt and change some things. And every single one of these behaviors can be coached, which is the coolest part. So just because someone may score low in an area today doesn't mean they are always going to score low. It actually gives you insights into what areas you should work on to be more effective in a given role.
100%. And this is my actual, for anyone like watching this on YouTube, this is my actual score for the CEO position. So, dude, Brandon, poke some holes in my leadership here.
First of all, kudos for showing it. I also score a 7 as CEO score a 7 for the right seat score here as a CEO. So the big thing that you kind of notice is, for whatever reason, the labels aren't really quite showing exactly what each one of them kind of stand for.
Could be maybe not zoomed in enough, but
at the bottom. But if you have each of these different behavioral attributes, you have proactivity, dominance, endurance, order. So order is one of the ones that kind of falls a little bit outside of the range. And if you scroll all the way down to the bottom, you can see there's different coaching videos and recommendations and interview questions to kind of go through. So if you go like for order, you can view some interview questions down beneath there. Yep. So these are questions that I, would ask you, to kind of, talk about what areas you could potentially improve in the organizational side of things. And there's different growth areas, especially in the coaching report, that you'll be able to identify in some of those. So, understanding the importance, you may not necessarily, and by the way, CEO benchmark does not mean entrepreneur benchmark. I find people that have a CEO score of 3 that can still be successful entrepreneurs. It mostly has to do with like, okay, maybe you have lower order. Maybe you need to have someone on your team that is responsible for the organization of everything inside of your drives and how things are stacked up and put together. Same thing with, personal adjustments and, all these different kinds of attributes. You can start to fill out areas. Like for myself, I'm very, very low criticality. It's like way outside the benchmark. So I need to have people that have high criticality on my team that are a little bit more critical of people and things, to give me that pushback. If I feel like an idea is a great idea, I want them to push back and tell me why it's not.
Yeah. Love it. Love it. Self-confidence 100. We know that.
Right, man.
Yeah. So everyone that's watching this, I'm going to put a link under this. I highly, highly recommend that you do two things. One is a disc profile for you and your team. And two is this behavior, the right seat analyzer within HireBus. So I'm going to drop a link to both of those. Highly, highly recommend you do it, because if you can understand the personalities and the behaviors of the people in your company, you can coach them better. And if you can coach them better, they'll perform better.
Yeah, for sure. Love it, man.
Yeah, absolutely. So, okay, dude. So started Wise Coatings January 2021, grew it. Did you see it growing to the size that it is now? Like, was this ever something kind of on your vision board, or did you just begin getting traction and then kind of just took off?
It was not what I expected, to be honest. I'd say 4 months in, I realized what it could be. And that's where I started bringing in Whitney and talking about longer term strategy. So about month 3 or 4 is when we decided to pivot and expand out and open up to more people and get the systems and infrastructure in place to kind of make that happen. At that point in time, I had really big visions for it. But the day I started it was, I'm just going to start a business that's local here in my area, and we're going to show how you can build it without, having to do anything yourself. Once it kind of turned into the larger vision, now I want to be doing 100 locations, $100 million a year. And I don't see that being a difficult thing to accomplish. We have a pretty clear path. We'll probably add on another 25 locations this year, and just keep it going, keep ramping that up. And our goal is to get to that 100 locations within the next, 2 to 3 years. So I think we'll do it.
And at 100 locations, what revenue do you think that'd look like?
If you figure an average location doing, roughly $1 million a year in revenue, which is only 2 trucks, a little bit less than 2 trucks, 1.2 million, is kind of the 2 trucks, 7 employees model. That's not difficult to do. So if you can be at that 1.2 million, 100 locations, that's 120 million in top line.
Crazy, dude. And obviously when you're making the jump from, 6 figures to 7 figures, so much changes. 6 figures or 7 figures to 8 figures changes, 8 figures to 9 figures changes. What do you think is going to be this biggest jump going from 8 figures to 9 figures?
The franchisor model is a lot different than just a privately held company. So there's pros and cons to each, right? The head count that's required to have a company that does 120 million that is privately owned, all ran underneath of one silo, looks substantially different than a franchisor organization that supports franchisees that do 120 million in revenue. Now we have some of our own locations that we own that are what we consider corporate stores. And with that structure, you have general managers and you have those other types of individuals that need to get put in place, and then a higher tier operations level that can kind of run across that, consolidated marketing teams and some of those things in place. But really it's not a whole lot different than what we're doing currently, because it can be scaled up in, a specific type of model. Main thing is just cost management, because it's really easy to spend all of the royalty revenue that you have coming in terms of support, and then have nothing left over for the franchisor, especially when you're just getting started. So I think that's also the other surprise too, is just getting to that place where, is cash flow positive, and, and having that investment. It's expensive to get the franchisor model done, but franchisors usually sell for a higher multiple too. So that's the upside.
For sure. And I think when people are growing a business, there's really 3 avenues that they can go. Number one is obviously just continuously growing one location, or specifically for the home service, let's say, like grow it and just keep growing it as big as you can, expanding service area, thing like that. Number 2 is a franchise model, opening up a different location. Or number 3 is adding a different service, right? If you're going from painting, now you're adding flooring, or you're going, painting, you're adding whatever, brick, right? So there's different kind of complementary services you can add to your current one in order to increase revenue. What made you want to go down the franchise route rather than the other 2 routes?
Well, I'd never done it before. That's the honest answer. I'm weirdly wired to try to do new things and challenge myself in areas that I've never done something before, And like with my cleaning business, the thought of starting another cleaning business was not attractive to me, because it's like, well, I've already done that. I've never had a software company before. So all right, let's start a software company because it sounds really interesting and fascinating thing to try to tackle. So the franchise route, I debated quite a bit between a licensing path versus keeping it private versus franchising it. And ultimately, the thing that attracted me the most is I wanted to build a franchise system, but just do it differently than any other franchise company had before. So, like, yeah, we have our royalties that are actually typically less than even industry standard, but we pay for the CRM, the bookkeeping, all the marketing management. So, literally, Facebook ad buying, social media, all that, Google ad buying, like, we pay for the management side of it. We provide just a ton of stuff that when you kind of compare the cost between going out and doing it on your own versus just being a part of the franchise system, like it's way cheaper to just be a part of the franchise system as opposed to doing it on your own. You know, when you look at apples to apples, what you get with all the training videos and the systems done from day one. And I just didn't want it to be just another franchise system where you pay a big fee, you pay royalties, and you just get like a binder. It's like, okay, here's your playbook. Good luck.
Yeah.
And so that's why I kind of wanted to challenge and change is I'm attracted to building companies that just do things very differently and kind of stand out as man, no one else does it that way. That's really interesting. And that's what I like to kind of build is that competitive differentiator. So that was a big drive for going a franchise route is for those two main reasons.
I love it. And if someone's at the $1 million mark looking to go to 3 million, 5 million, do you think that they should look at the franchise route as well?
No, I don't. I will say that it is a massive learning curve. And I think that to really stand the test of time for a franchise company, you have to excel not at your ability to be able to bring in revenue. You have to excel at your ability to be able to train and teach average people to be successful business owners. And that is really freaking tough to do. It's really, really hard to do because at the end of the day, these individuals will do exactly what they want to do. They can follow it. They can not follow it. Your only kind of forcible things is like legal matters, which just sucks.
Yeah.
Just sucks. Like when you have an employee, you can say like, don't do that. You're fired. Like, but with a franchisee, it's just, it gets uglier quicker and it's not as fun to be able to kind of give that kind of coaching and feedback. So I would say that, the quickest way to go from, 2 million to 20 million is just to take exactly what it is that you're doing now. Don't add on other services and just expand into other small markets outside your own market. Go pick a location that's an hour away and has a good population and open up a location, just duplicate your success on what you have. And that is oftentimes a much quicker path to growth. It's just duplicating your own existing proven process. Franchising requires a whole other mess of stuff that has nothing to do with duplicating your own business processes. It has more to do with creating a process that allows you to teach another business owner how to be a good business owner. And that's just, it can be a distraction if you aren't focused on it full time.
Fair enough. And you said tackle small market. How come not a big one?
Attack a small market. Is that what you said?
Yeah. You said like take your service instead of adding on new services. If you try to go 2 to 20 million, you said tackle small markets.
Let me clarify what I mean by that. I don't mean go out and find small markets. I mean, if like when I started All Clean, we were in the Portland Metro Vancouver area. It's like 1.5 million population. And we were kind of over on the east side of that market. And all we did was just move an hour over to the other side of the larger market into a suburban area, a smaller city, neighborhood area, and just kind of expand that location out so that our teams didn't have to drive an hour, commuting back and forth there every day. And then we just grew that, expanded out. And then we went up to Vancouver area, which was only another 45 minutes to an hour away. And we opened up a little small location there. So, we were able to cover our larger market, but do so without just one big centralized dispatch hub, but smaller little pocket, locations and branches to kind of expand through. Now it's different for painting, I'll say, because you're on for larger jobs, typically for longer periods of time, but it can be a good way to kind of kill that commute to and from those types of, locations by kind of expanding out that way. Just
Yeah.
duplicate what you're doing now into another market.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's a big kind of misconception is people think that places with bigger populations are the best markets to move into. For example, Phoenix. But the thing
Right.
with big populations is there's a big amount of competitors too, right?
Right.
And if you're doing something, odds are somebody else is doing something, right? If that comes down to Facebook ads, places with higher populations are a lot more competitive, which means your CPM, the cost to reach 1,000 people, is substantially higher compared to if you went to like a little subsection where not many people are targeting and you just blasted that. Your ads would be that much more effective. And I'm assuming it's the same with any other kind of facet of marketing, that you will reach every single person in that market and you'll become like a household name a lot easier than targeting like a big, metropolis area.
Yeah, I agree. When we started Wise Coatings in Portland, there's 27 other companies that did the same services. When we launched from zero, and there was quite a few that were advertising on Facebook, on Google, and we disrupted the crap out of the marketplace. Like one of our biggest competitors closed up shop within just a couple of years of us opening up our location. I like to think it's related. Maybe it's not, but they did have to exit and kind of consolidate. So, I would say that the big key to opening up is looking for, in that market that you're looking to expand into, is there a demand? Are you already maybe sending some crews over to that market? And do you already have maybe a smaller foothold into that? If you were to start directing more targeted efforts into there, with a blended campaign, what would that look like? And then it's really just getting a good salesperson in there as well. Going to the BNI meetings, going to the Chamber of Commerce, knocking on doors, prospecting, on top of traditional methods on digital marketing.
Exactly. Exactly. I love it, man. I love that. And is that kind of your like approach with new franchisees that come on, is rather than hitting the big kind of populated area, you're like, what little subsections can we what little ponds can we tackle before we go after that big ocean?
Yeah, we break even big markets into a lot of smaller territories. Like someone doesn't just come in and get Dallas or New York City. They're smaller sections and zip codes and segments. And this was actually the same thing with our salespeople. When I would have a salesperson, even in Portland, and he wasn't given really clear direction of where to go farm into, he was just given the whole territory to kind of go. He would quickly get tapped out on something, and his follow-up on all of the leads that he was getting would drastically decrease. Whereas when we just cut and said, okay, now you're just working in this little pocket, he actually ended up selling more and got more work extracted out. And then we're able to take where one person was selling the whole market and start dividing that up into 4 different salespeople. And then we got 4 times the output of what one salesperson was able to do in just one little area. So
Really?
yeah, segmenting things out and giving people focus in the sales side too can help kind of extract out the potential in a given market, rather than, well, how am I going to get enough work? Well, you pound your territories and you work just those territories. And it's amazing how much work you can pull out of there. People
100%.
people
And
think they got to go far.
in levels of efficiency too, right? Driving from one end of the city to the other for quotes, not as efficient as if you're just going 2 blocks down, right? If you're just bombarding that area,
For
and
sure.
John from whatever, Plano, Texas, let's say that's how you divide it up. Let's say Plano is north of Dallas. If he's only in Plano, everybody in Plano is going to recognize John. Whereas
Right.
if you have 7 different reps in the area, you're relying more so on the brand rather than the person, and people buy from people more than people buy from businesses at the end of the day.
Yeah, I agree. And then you can have your sales reps go specifically to those individual Chamber of Commerce, locations. Like just the Gresham Chamber of Commerce alone in our area yielded so much work out of it, hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars a year just from that one single network. Well, there's, 20 inside of our larger market that you can go to. Don't just go to one. And so, niching down in those little sub neighborhoods and sub pockets and cities and townships, really, there's a lot of value to extract out of those.
I love it, dude. That's a huge, huge tactic. And even putting your sales reps in the ads, right? So there's consistency there in the buying process, having them knock on the doors, go to the BNI. Like if you have 7 different people in the same BNI and they're changing week over week over week, how are you going to develop a relationship if there's a new face every other week? You know what I mean? So
Right.
I think that's huge, man. That's powerful.
Is that how you guys typically tackle it in the marketing targeting side of things too? Is you'll hit smaller individual cities and towns as opposed to just one big metro area?
It depends the area and depends the client's revenue. You know, bigger businesses typically need bigger audience size and whatnot because they're spending substantially more, right? Someone who's spending, say, $10,000 a month, their creatives will tap out real quick in an audience size of 50,000. So you need to open
Right.
that up, right? Compared to someone who's spending 5,000 in an audience size of 200,000, right? But
Right.
I would say the smaller markets are where all the money is because not many competitors are doing it. If you're hitting the suburbia, like people are a lot more prone to buying. They typically have more money. There's lower or not as many lower income areas there, or you can kind of segment by postal code. Whereas like if you're targeting Miami and you do one postal code, let's say, you're gonna have people by the beach with like a $5 million condo, and then also people that are, you know, living paycheck to paycheck, right? So they
Right.
all kind of fall under the same zip code, but I would say, yeah, smaller areas is typically where we kind of pinpoint.
Yeah. Or Facebook doesn't have their correct, most recent updated data, and they actually live in a whole nother place.
Exactly, dude. When they removed that, man, I was so annoying.
I
In
know.
2012, you could like choose one specific Facebook profile and just
Yeah.
buy ads for that one person only. And now they're just getting like more and more and more broad, where they remove like the aspect of like people or living in, and now it's like recently in.
Right.
So it did kind of there's ways to work around it, of course, but yeah, they're just getting more broad as they go, man.
I heard from someone, not to squirrel this out too much, but I heard from someone that the transcripts that are inside the ad creatives, when you have videos, Facebook will read those and be able to target, especially if you have optimization on, the people that you talk about in those videos. If you're saying, I wonder if that would work if you just started saying like Brian's. If your name is Brian and you're this, if they would just start displaying it more to Brian's just because they knew.
Dude, honestly, I'm gonna look at our clients that are most successful and see if they have a common name, and I'm just gonna launch an ad for all of them. If you're a painting business owner named Ryan,
Right. Yeah. I wonder about the cities and things, having those videos that talk about those, those people inside those cities. Yeah. Be interesting.
100%. I love it, dude. But we were talking before the podcast that you recently acquired, if may I say,
Yeah, of course.
yeah,
Mhm.
you recently acquired an electric company in Arizona. So walk me through what this process is going to be like for you for acquiring this company. Like, how are you going to scale the crap out of it? Because I know you will, right? You've done this with a lot of businesses, so I know you're going to scale the crap out of this business. But what are your next steps for that?
One of the biggest paths to wealth building, I believe, is through arbitrage. And what I mean by that is going out and buying a bunch of businesses at a lower multiple of profit or EBITDA and combining those together and then selling those for a much larger multiple of EBITDA. So, I mean, you could go out and you could buy, 10 $1 million revenue businesses that are doing, 200,000 EBITDA, let's say. You combine all those together. Now you have a $10 million business that's doing 2 million in EBITDA. Let's say to buy all 10 of those businesses, you bought those for a 3x multiple on EBITDA. So 2 million in EBITDA between all 10 times 3 is $6 million to buy those. Just by combining them together and raising that EBITDA up to 2 million, you can very easily go out and sell that for, 6 to 8 to even 10x multiple on EBITDA. So let's say you sell for a 10x, now you're selling that business for $20 million. You only bought it for 6, those 10 businesses. So it's very quick at being able to accelerate. You just have to kind of be good at integrating the businesses together, maybe putting them underneath of one brand. Well, my company called Hammer and Forge that I own with some partners, that's what we're doing. We're doing this in the electrical space. So we're buying electrical companies, and the goal is to combine them together and systemize them, get good operational procedures, have them all underneath of one consistent brand, and then to go out and take it to the marketplace. Or, the nice thing is the same steps are required to build a business to keep it and have it generate a bunch of profit for you, or build a business to sell it. It's the exact same process. So Our first business was January 1st that we bought, and we're going to kind of document, turning that business around. It's a 40-year-old business with the, fairly stagnant growth, not a whole lot of systems and processes in there, kind of generic branding. And we're going to completely overhaul it and kind of show the process along the way.
And how'd you find this company?
Cold calling. So we just pulled a list of electrical companies in the United States and started calling them and just talking to them and finding out they might be interested in selling. And that opened up a conversation with the seller of this business that said, yeah, actually, I would be interested. And then comes the creative, deal making side of the process to be able to, build the business either through an annuity process with seller financing or going out and raising capital for it. And in this case, it was mostly seller financed.
Crazy. Same deal you gave to your father?
Same deal? Is that what you said?
Yeah. You said 3,000 a month for life.
No, not quite. But it did start out. The deals of this one was a cash down payment, and then the rest of it was on a finance term that starts out at $1,000 a month and then ratchets up from there over the course of the next, I think it's like 7 years. But the one key consideration was not having an electrical license. I don't have an electrical license. I'm not a professional electrician. So the seller actually is retained with a small percentage of equity in the new company to be able to keep his license on with the business. So now we have our electrical license, we have our new business name, and we're going to start, ramping things up.
Gosh, you're going to change this guy's life, man. It's like the McDonald's brothers, dude. Once they got acquired, it's just astronomical, and their piece of equity is just blown up. So, man, I'm envious of this guy.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. He's excited about it too. He's really interested to kind of see what we do and how we put things in place. He actually lives in a completely different state now. So, a lot of the things that he wants to see, he wants to be able to kind of do and take and hopefully emulate and, put forth in his new business ventures that undoubtedly he's going to do. So it's a cool win-win, because he gets kind of a front row seat on exactly the process to professionalize a business that he owned and take it to the next level. And no doubt that education is going to be good for him and whatever his next venture is going to be.
I love it. And the biggest change you're going to make is just implementation, essentially, of current systems, or a little bit different systems, obviously, because it's electrical, but more or less same foundations as what you built Wise and HireBoss and all these other companies on, right?
Yeah, definitely the system side, the operations side, the marketing side, the people side. We're going to hire a GM to come in and run and grow this business. And we're using HireBus for that, for new staff or hiring additional people. The team that's there is pretty good. They're pretty solid. So we got a good foundation. They're drastically undercharging. Their branding is terrible. The marketing's really bad. They're hardly doing anything for marketing. So there's a lot of low-hanging fruit that we'll be able to just literally just click and implement and change and double the business just through that alone. Without a whole lot of changes, well, I shouldn't say without a whole lot of changes, without a whole lot of work, just kind of tweaking some things.
Yeah.
Like the day we got it,
a lot of work, but you've already done this before. So the lift isn't as heavy as if it was just, the owner trying to do it himself.
Yeah, exactly. And I got good, team members that can come in and deploy and do that kind of effort now, because we kind of have a playbook started, and we'll continue to refine the playbook too for the next deal.
For sure. Oh, man, that's so exciting. That is so exciting. You must be, that's like because I think there's two things there that really scratch the itch for you. Number one is that's something you've never done before. You mentioned you've never done coatings. That's why you went to Wise Coding. So this is a completely new industry. And number two, you don't have your electrical certification. So you can't jump on, just like how you've never done a garage floor. You can't jump on. So you're building this how you've built all the other stuff of no arms, no legs. And I think that's so cool, man.
Yeah, it's the way. I'm not an inventor of this process by any means. A lot of people way smarter than me. And when you kind of stop to take a look at people who are very successful, they all follow this path. They find smart people to come in and help them with stuff. They become really good at delegating. They don't have to be the person that does it all. And it's been hard for me to overcome that urge, because I am good at stuff. I can figure anything out. And I like to do it as well. That's the other hard part. And just being able to let go of control and trust other people and put systems in place so it can consistently get done. It's a growth area for a lot of people for sure, but man, it's worth it.
100%. And again, in order to let go and have trust and have faith that the things are going to get done, you do need to have the right people. And I think HireBus is the perfect tool to do that, especially in the home service space. I think HireBus is like a cheat sheet to get to the front. Seriously.
Thank you, man. Yeah,
Yes.
I'm stoked for what we've built. We've helped hire, I think about I think it's like 340 salespeople last year. Commission only salespeople, and we're working with Justin over at Trade Launch to recruit door to door salespeople as well. So there's a lot of things for project managers and painters and production managers. Any key role that you need in your painting business, we can help you find a rock star.
I love it, dude. I love it. Awesome, man. And if people want to get in touch with you, whether that's signing up for HireBus or just to, follow your map to a million or, follow what you're doing with this electrical company because it's super exciting, how can they get in touch with you?
Well, go to hirebus.com/paintergrowth. And we got, I'm sorry, Forward Media. We have one specifically for you. I believe it's not /paintergrowth. I think it's Forward Media.
Yeah, that's the other good-looking Canadian guy.
That's right. Yeah, if we drop the link down below there, but then hit me up on Facebook and Instagram as well. I use Facebook pretty much only for business. I'm trying to work on my social profiles a little bit more, but hit me up there. Send me a message. Be happy to connect with you and point you in the right direction for anything else.
Love it. So if you want to get in touch with Brandon or sign up for HireBus, I'm going to have all the links in the description of this video on YouTube or Spotify or Apple Podcasts, wherever you're watching it. And make sure to keep up with what Brandon's got going on, man. He's a crusher. He's going places.
Right on. Thanks, Lucas. Appreciate it, man.
Thanks for having me. Bye.